think Minneapolis as a city and as a community, you know, the Twin Cities have a lot to do with the work that we do. Mainly because, well, for a few reasons. One is that our city is just so supportive and excited and proud of its art scene. So anybody that does anything creative that can be, you know, it's really celebrated. So, you know, painters and sculptors and musicians and filmmakers and poets and, you know, everybody has a chance to really be embraced. And I think that exists in general, but for hip hop specifically, the fact that Atmosphere is here has done so much because, you know, not only is Atmosphere a leader here, but they almost created or pioneered or really, you know, popularized a new genre of music, a new genre of hip hop. That, you know, there were other people making that kind of music before and after, but, you know, the fact that they were the biggest ones and they were the ones that, you know, that took it all across the country and around the world. Did a lot for the artists inside of Minneapolis, myself and everybody that came after them. You know, made us believe that it was possible to really have a career and be known. And so all of us started taking what we were doing more serious because of them. So even if we don't necessarily sound specifically like them, although they did influence our sound as well, everybody, and you know, anybody can deny it or downplay it or whatever, but so much of, you know, the sound too has to do with what Slug and Ant created. You know, people still have to be themselves, but there's a type of expression, there's a type of writing that Atmosphere opened the door to and really made possible for the rest of us. So the same way that, you know, people kind of came in, you know, different cities and kicked the door down, and Seattle is the one that stands out the most. You know, Atmosphere did that for us. So KRS-One is a huge influence, was a huge influence, and I think the point that I was making when I said that he was our KRS, I was mainly talking about that time, you know, in the late 80s when my generation didn't have, you know, prominent political leaders. I don't think, you know, we had Jesse Jackson, but I don't think we felt like Jesse Jackson spoke for us. I don't think we felt like necessarily Al Sharpton spoke for our generation. We kind of felt like those were voices from a previous time, whereas Chuck D and KRS-One and X-Clan and Ice Cube, you know, we felt like they were speaking for our generation a little bit more. I would say the only exception to that is Farrakhan. There was a feeling in the street that Farrakhan and Khalid Muhammad spoke for Abdul Muhammad spoke for the people, you know, a little bit more for our generation. But our real leaders and our real people that were articulating the way that we felt were the rappers at that time, and so that inspired me a lot. In terms of how far I will take, you know, what I'm doing, I think that I've achieved more, and what I've always believed was for me to express things the way that I feel them, and in a way that makes sense and feels natural for me. So I don't want to ever present myself as anything more or less than what I am. I don't want to overstep it to say that I'm the leader for, you know, anything like that. But, you know, so I don't want to over-present it, but I also don't want to under-present it, because I know that what I'm saying comes from a deep line of truth, and it comes from experience, and it comes from, you know, viewing the world in a really objective way and from a really unique vantage point. And I know what I know, and I'm not going to be timid or shy or apologetic about what I understand and know to be true. So I think there's a balance there with being confident with what I know and what I feel I need to say, and having that sense of purpose and drive and believe that it's a calling from somewhere beyond myself. but then also to not overstate the case and to not present myself as being more important than I am. I'm very honored and privileged and humbled by the opportunity to see something that I feel needs to be expressed and to be able to present it in the best and hopefully most helpful way that I can. Well, I had no choice. Ant just wasn't available to make an album with me this year. Normally what we do is we spend 6 months or a year making an album, and then we go on tour, and we tour our albums for 1 year or basically a year and a half, you know. And in order to do that, we tour very thoroughly and very extensively. We go to every little nook and cranny in America. We try to do Canada kind of thoroughly. We try to do, and when I say thorough, I mean we don't just do the big cities in Canada. We don't just do the big cities in Europe. You know, some people do a European tour and it's like 5 shows. You know, we try to really spend a month and do it properly. So that means that in order to do that in a year, we have to be on tour the entire year. You know, I've toured as much as 10 months out of a year. And you know, as people with families, that's extremely difficult. You basically miss out on a year of your family. And Slug has a young son, and so he doesn't want to do that this time. So when Atmosphere put their new album out, they toured for 3 weeks at a time and then would come home for 3 weeks, and then would go out for a month and then come home for a month. So basically, in order for them to do all their touring, it took them, you know, 2 or 3 years as opposed to 1 year. And so Ant just wasn't available to work with me, so I had to make more music. I had something, you know, I went through all these changes in my life and really wanted to express it and really wanted to, I felt ready to make an album, but Ant wasn't available. And so I kind of took that as an opportunity to open up some new opportunities and you know, not better or worse, but just different, to do something different, to write and create in a different way. And I ended up working with Jake One, who's a lot less hands-on. You know, Ant is there in the room when I'm writing the song. He has something to do with every part of it. Whereas Jake sends beats to everybody that he works with. And if I'm able to create a song that he feels good about, then he kind of takes it off the market. And so we did it like that. I ended up going to Seattle for a month. Well, probably the total about 2 months. I went out there for a week at a time or a weekend at a time, and then I got an apartment and just stayed out there for another month and made my album out there. And it was a really great experience, and me and Jake will definitely continue to work together. We've already been making music since we finished that album. We just kept going. And me and Ant will work together again. You know, it's too early to think about what the future will be for those two things. Or, you know, whether I'll try to combine something or do separate projects with them again. But all of those things are still just part of the menu now. Mourning in America and Dreaming in Color is about the kind of like duality of reality that we're in now, as I see it. I think what I've experienced is that we are in one of the darkest and worst social, economic, political, spiritual times that I've seen in my lifetime. The crack epidemic was extremely, you know, terrible, caused a lot of crime and a lot of destruction and a lot of pain and destroyed a lot of families. And that happened when I was a young kid. But now what we're seeing is more widespread than that. It's more far-reaching than that. And it's really touching everyone in our society except for the people at the very top. And so the idea of one of the ideas of this album is kind of two that play against each other and work together in strange ways. But the idea that things are extremely bad, and we're not really talking about the root issues. We're not really talking about the people that are suffering the most. We're not really talking about, you know, the people who have it worse. they're kind of suffering silently, so the idea is to allow suffering to speak. The other side of this is that I've also witnessed, and I think we've seen it all around the world, so many people having so much difficulty making it, just having a decent life, that people are working together in new ways, in ways that I haven't seen in my lifetime either. And it's causing new opportunities, and so there's a possibility for us to finally get it right. And what that would mean is for everybody to be included, everybody to be valued, everybody to be allowed to contribute, everybody be protected. And so that's the dreaming in color side. So this album really deals with how bad things really are. So there's some really heavy, dark material on there. But then there's also some really hopeful reimagining of the world involved there as well. Mourning in America and Dreaming in Color. I think that all of us have the responsibility to respond to the life that we have, and you know, my life has just shown me so many really unique things, and you know, that's what goes on in my head. That's, you know, I make the music that is important to me at the time to make it, and so yeah, I've grown as a person. I've grown, you know, in so many ways. And I feel like I don't know what else to do other than make music about what matters to me the most. And right now, the situation in the world, the situation in the community, really, and the society that I live in, the people that I love. You know, the reality is that I have people who made me who I am, and I love them, and I have a sense of gratitude and a sense of responsibility to them. So it's not just, you know, to everybody in the world, but you know, I'm an underdog. I was raised and trained by underdogs, by the people who, you know, suffer, and that's who my allegiance is to. And so I feel like my job as an artist is to make music about what's important to me, and that's what's important to me. And more as the living of my own life becomes less and less a focus. You know, when you grow up, you learn how to live, and so, you know, you learn who you are, so it's not so much a focus of who am I. That's not a question anymore like it is when you're 20. You know, when you're 20, you're trying to figure out, all right, I'm an adult now. What's that mean? Who am I? How do I live? What's my identity? All that kind of stuff. Why am I here? And, you know, then you get to be 30, you get in your 30s, and that's not a question anymore. You hopefully have figured out who you are, why you're here, what your purpose is. And so that becomes your focus rather than so much about me. You know, so for me to still make intensely personal music feels weird to me, because it feels like, you know, yeah, I still have things that I go through, and I continue to make those songs, but making entire albums about me struggling living life just isn't a reality anymore. Now the struggle is for everybody to be able to experience what I've experienced, to be self-actualized, to live the life that they're meant to live. And so many people never get the opportunity to do that, not because they're not driven or don't have the work ethic or whatever, but because they just don't have the opportunity to live life. And so that's the focus of my music now. There's just not much to say yet. You know, Freeway spent a week in Minneapolis because he came out and we did a show together. And we had a great time, and we made some music that was fun to make, and I think it's dope. But we just haven't had a chance to work on it again. Like, we live in different cities and we're both really, really busy, you know what I mean? So there's nothing else to reveal. As soon as we get the chance to sit together and work, then we'll make it, and then it'll come out. There's no secrecy about it. It hasn't. Nothing more has happened since we made 3 songs. So there's 3 songs together. Actually, no, 4. There's a fourth one that we both did for Jake One, maybe a year ago. But other than that, we just haven't had a chance to really do the work. But as soon as we can sit down in one place for 2 weeks or a month, if a month would be great, but 2 weeks we could finish it. And I think we'll make something that's really fun and really hard and try to explore a lot of different things and see what we can do. And it'll be a really like fun project. Maybe we'll do some shows together too. That'd be really tight. I think us performing together on stage that'd be a lot of rap. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely European music that I like, and definitely like that European like jazz fusion, experimental stuff. But I mean, there have been European people that have put their own spin on a lot of different genres of music that I like. Like there's European soul music that I think is tight. Like there's like really inventive things that they've done. I mean, there's even within hip hop, there's been some really dope additions. I can't think of anything specifically Polish off the top of my head right now. I don't focus as much on production as other people do. I'm an MC. That's what I dedicate my life to. I haven't dedicated my life to producing, so I don't consider myself a producer. I do it because I love to do it, and I don't spend a whole lot of time digging for records just to make beats with. I look for records that I like to listen to, and then when I feel like making beats, I sample those. So my sampling isn't crazy, you know what I mean? I'm not a super digger. I don't have a crazy collection of the rarest records on earth. I listen to a lot of soul. Soul music is the majority of music that I listen to, and so when it's time to sample, I sample that. So I'm sampling like all the things that if you listen to like the stuff that I've done has been like not rare records. I sample Bobby Blue Bland and Curtis Mayfield and what I listen to, because I'm not trying to impress you with my beat digging. I'm trying to impress you with my rhyming, and when I make beats, it's for fun.